There is a weapon in our country that is the nightmare of all satellites, capable of blinding enemy satellites with just one strike. And it is precisely with the escort of this weapon that the Americans do not dare to act rashly against our Beidou satellite. So, what exactly is this trump card weapon? On January 11, 2007, at China's Xichang Satellite Launch Center, a pioneering one rocket was launched. Launching rockets is not typically something special, but the key is that the rocket carried a kinetic energy anti-satellite missile. Under the support of the Kaituozhe-1 rocket, the Dongning-1 traveled into space at an astonishing supersonic speed of Mach 24, ultimately precisely hitting the Fingyun-1, which weighed 750 kilograms, destroying an abandoned satellite in outer space on the spot. As soon as the news broke, the whole world was shocked. The Americans far across the ocean were especially shocked. They had thought that after the Soviet Union's collapse, no other country would compete in the anti-satellite missile field, but unexpectedly, China's kinetic energy series took the lead and gave them a hard slap in the face. It should be noted that the Americans conducted their first anti-satellite missile test as early as 1985, dispatching an F-15 fighter jet to launch an ASM-135 anti-satellite missile, directly destroying an observation satellite. For a moment, the Western world suddenly boiled over. No wonder the Americans are the Americans. Their strength is still so formidable. Our country dares to defy them. And if we show even a little of our capabilities, it will be beyond what they can handle. Before the Western world could celebrate for long, 3 years later, our country successfully test-fired a more advanced kinetic energy 2 anti-satellite missile, destroying a target more than 10,000 kilometers away in one strike. Compared to Kinetic Energy 1, Kinetic Energy 2 not only has a greatly increased range but also upgrades its attack method from close-range explosion to kinetic impact, achieving an alarming level of accuracy that can almost destroy the vast majority of satellites in the world. What shocked the American Space Agency even more was that Kinetic 1 and Kinetic 2 seemed to be just the beginning. The subsequently emerging Kinetic 3 was beyond terrifying. It was nothing short of a miracle. On October 30th of 2015, our country successfully tested the Kinetic 3 anti-satellite missile, intercepting a Dongfeng 21 ballistic missile outside the atmosphere. Once this news was announced, Western countries immediately fell silent, and the US Department of Defense refused to comment as if it had become withdrawn. Kinetic 1 hits satellites, Kinetic 2 surpasses 10,000 meters, Kinetic 3 intercepts missiles. What are you going to do next? Is it going to be Kinetic Energy 4 capable of hitting aliens? Are we also going to outer space to launch it ourselves? But you can't blame the Americans for retreating into their shell. You should know that the Dongfeng 21 is one of our most advanced hypersonic missiles, with a maximum speed exceeding Mach 8, meaning it can travel 3 kilometers per second. Intercepting it is almost like a fantasy. However, Kinetic Energy 3 can even intercept Dongfeng 21, which means its speed is much faster and its accuracy is even more formidable than Dongfeng 21, reaching an astonishing level beyond comprehension. In fact, according to existing data, Kinetic Energy 3 relies on the accompanying Kuaizhou-1 rocket with an ultimate speed as high as 27 Mach and a maximum range possibly reaching 60,000 kilometers, bringing all nearby Earth satellites within its attack range. In other words, our country has the full capability to destroy all of the enemy's high-end military satellites, while the opponent has no ability to retaliate. Whether it's the famous Global Positioning System or the ever-growing Starlink system, they are no exception. Imagine if a war really breaks out and our Kinetic Energy 3 first destroys the enemy's strategic navigation, intelligence, and communication systems, turning them blind and deaf. Wouldn't they be like fish in a barrel? It is no exaggeration to say that it is precisely because of this weapon's existence that the United States has been cautious while our Beidou satellite system develops and grows, never daring to make bold moves. Kinetic Energy 3, as one of our strongest trump cards, is especially a declaration to NATO countries that rely on satellites. If you dare to touch our Beidou system, we dare to leave you without satellites. Therefore, the Americans have to carefully consider how to avoid the Kinetic Energy 3 strikes. From a realistic perspective, it is clearly unavoidable at the moment. In addition, with the current satellite technology of humanity, using Kinetic Energy number 3 for hitting satellites is actually somewhat wasteful. Its greater role, as mentioned earlier, is intercepting hypersonic ballistic missiles in outer space. The Americans can't even produce hypersonic missiles now, while we have Kinetic Energy number 3, which can both hit space satellites and intercept hypersonic missiles. Being 30 years ahead is probably an understatement.